Good morning. I'm Bill Maltrich. I'm the head of collection development at New York University. Super excited to be here, and it's been great. I just have to say, just being able to run into people and see people in person, and very excited about that. Also excited to be up here with our partners and to talk a little bit about foreign language content acquisition and sort of their perspectives of what's been going on and how we've been working together. I know for sure that when we think about the research and the teaching that's going on at NYU, and especially when we think about our values-based collection development, particularly around diversity, equity, inclusion, foreign language content is, of course, crucial to our collection development. At the same time, we know really well that it's also very complicated. When we think about formats, when we think about the demand for collaboration among our libraries, when we think about integrations, it's a complicated universe. And then finally, I think what's really important is that when you think through the diversity of publishers and perspectives among libraries and the publisher perspectives, without help from vendors, it's impossible. And so I think that's the first important point to recognize. But to me, there's a second very important point, and that is that it's not enough to do what's possible. I think it's pretty imperative that libraries working together try to strategize and decide what it is they want to be possible. And in those kinds of efforts, those collaboratively setting strategies and goals, it's incredibly important, given that complexity, that we're working with partners who can help us communicate with the multitude of people who we need to be in touch with to do the things we decide we want to do. All of our partners will talk about the efforts in the period prior to the pandemic and going forward. I'm hoping that sort of as we listen to them, we can listen for strategies that we've been implementing and strategies that we think we can pursue going forward, because again, to me, that is the most important part, this communication aspect and this cooperation. So with that and with those ears on, at least for me, I'm going to hand it over to Fernando.
Thank you. Sorry. Okay. I need to down. Okay, thank you, Bill, and thank you all people for inviting me for this panel. I would like to start my presentation with this quote of Alan Turing. We can only see a short distance ahead, but we can see plenty that we need to do. Probably many of you realize that we have to do a lot of things different and better to pick back to a digital world. In my case, for those who don't know my company, I'm Librería García Cambeiro. My name is Fernando Genovart. I'm office in Argentina, Brazil, Uruguay, and Miami. We supply services to libraries. So we have a lot of uncertainties, but for my company, we have some certainties. One certainty that I have is what we do. What we do is important to know what is going to be the future. For those who don't know Librería García Cambeiro, our company supplies books, journals, and catalogs to libraries. We're a book vendor for Latin America, sort of Casalini and Eastview, but smaller. And for those who don't know Casalini and Eastview, probably if there is any here, they don't know them, we're like YBP, but much smaller. But we are also like OCLC in the sense that we do cataloging, but smaller, and we do original cataloging. That's something strange. And we are trying to be a bit at EBSCO and ProQuest in the sense we are looking for the digital world. So if I want to decide my company, we are library assistant in the selection, curation, and cataloging of Latin American material for libraries around the world. Why we do this? We do this because we are very, we understand the importance of the collection. We understand the importance of value matter collection, that looking for the long tail, those publishers, small publishers around the countries. And that was a lesson learned by my grandfather that started the business in the 50s when he met a librarian for UC Berkeley. Here we have a librarian UC Berkeley now, 70 years later. He was talking with the librarian and he understood what was the importance of a collection, how to look at scholarly material, what type of material the library are interested. After that meeting, he realized that he started meeting publishers, and that the relationship with publishers starts going on, because these publishers are low circulation publishers that go around the world. So, ¿qué será, será? What we will do for the future is a question I ask me many times a day. And we will continue doing the same. We will continue helping libraries to build their collection. We continue building relationship with the publisher in order to get those books to the library. Now, in digital world, that is the same. In this presentation, I want to have the last 4 minutes, I believe, talking about what we are doing in open access. We are doing projects with the commercial books, but also open access. And why is open access? For those who don't know, in Latin America, it's one of the leading continents in open access, at least from a perspective from Latin American mentality. Because for a Latin American mentality, open access is a PDF in a website. And as you know, that you are librarian and concerned about the preservation and the future, that is open today, but who knows in the future. At the same time, they have publishers with 5 titles, 10 titles, it's dispersed around all the website, and it's difficult to find. Sometimes in the page 35 of Google, you find the books. The majority of the books in Latin America, in the monographs, are not in Creative Commons. They don't know what are Creative Commons. And I don't know if any publisher know what is preservation, what is portico, what is dark archive, or clocks. So, talking with Angela Carreño, that is from NYU, that for those who don't know Angela, is one of the leading librarians in the electronic world for foreign acquisition countries. His advocacy, and is in any project that take the foreign to electronic. She was concerned about this issue, so we start thinking about how we solve this. And we have solved this with the same tools that we have. Why don't we make an approval plan, a collaborative approval plan, to search for those open access material and put it in an open access environment as a way that we do it in print. And that's why we started the Claxo project. For those who don't know Claxo, Claxo is one of the leading publishers in humanities in open access in the region. They publish books in Argentina, Colombia, Brazil, Chile, all over the country. Because Claxo is more than a publisher. It's a network of centers of research in Latin America that they publish their material. So after develop this issue, we got now 14 library champions that allow us to search for that material, secure that material, to put that material in JSTOR. Then we do Portico, we catalog that book, and we send to the library partners a mark record that link directly to the 2 places. Now, after 40 months of doing that, information is for 3 days ago. Now, currently we have 453 titles, but we are going to increase in 100 titles more next week. This was 1,400,000 views. This allows this material go to more than 200 countries. Countries like Lesotho, that I needed to look it in Wikipedia, that is a small country in the middle of South Africa, had 500 views of these titles. and more than 5,000 institutions around the world. This information is provided by JSTOR. So, ¿qué será, será? The future is uncertain, but the uncertainty is the heart of the humanity creative. I don't know you all, but I was at a time that was very afraid about the future of my company, what we are doing to do in the future. And probably many of you, we have the same issue in your libraries, because we don't know. But we only know that when something don't know, it's an opportunity to do something new. So this project, Claxo, was an idea. We are willing to continue helping the library to solve issues. I believe in the open access in the region. I believe in the collaborative efforts by the libraries, and I hope you enjoy. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Andrea from Casalini is going to be the next speaker.
Thank you, Fernando. Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to be here today. Let me start my presentation here. Okay. Okay, can you hear me? Okay, great. So my name is Andrea Ferro. I'm in global sales at Casalini, and I've been working for the company for the past 13 years. So let me start off by saying just a few words about Casalini. Casalini has been supplying books and journals and bibliographic services to libraries worldwide for the past 65 years and counting. And over the past 22 years, we have also been aggregating e-content through our own full-text platform, Torrosa. I won't say much about the platform itself because Torrosa is now on par with all the major e-content platforms out there in terms of compliance with the accessibility standards, in terms of features, etc. I will just say that Torrosa hosts the content by more than 400 publishers now. We have more than 350,000 ebooks and more than 1,200 journals. What has always differentiated Torrosa from other platforms out there is the level of the content curation. Our long-time experience with the print approval plans and our skilled bibliographers have played a crucial role in creating a highly curated selection of resources in electronic format, where niche publishers, research institutions, small historical societies, along with, of course, the big publishers, are equally represented to create a rich, diverse, and comprehensive collection of materials. Casalini has decades of experience in foreign language publications, and our area of expertise is the humanities and social sciences materials published in the Mediterranean area and beyond. And thanks to the recent joint venture with Erasmus and Hautschild, now Casalini can supply publications in print and e-format from across Europe. And our connotation as Mediterranean is very important because the publishing industry in this area is unlike any other, and it is especially different from the Anglo-American one. The first challenge we face is the fragmentation of the market. There are literally hundreds of small and very good publishers in Southern Europe, and Casalini's mission has always been to discover and source their content to make it available to libraries worldwide. And we can say that without us, it would be very, very difficult for publishers to make their valuable content available outside of their countries, and for libraries to find it. And the intellectual work and the legwork, I would add, since we visit publishers, book fairs, etc., on a regular basis, that happens behind the scenes is truly incredible. And this relentless work of research and discovery is crucial if we want to continue to provide an accurate and timely snapshot of what the publishing industry produces in our countries. And this is not true only for the print content, but also for the digital. Small publishers don't have the means, neither technological nor organizational, to make their content discoverable worldwide. So they need a partner like Casalini just to do that. The second challenge is the language factor. Over the past decades, we have seen an increasing dominance of English language in scholarly publishing worldwide. And this results in a marginalization of other languages, not only in the STEM area, but also in the humanities and social sciences. And in many cases, being published in a non-English language is regarded too as a sign of a lack of internationality and therefore quality. And I think the three of us here have seen this trend, but we have never stopped trying to do our best to preserve the bibliodiversity and the cultural vitality of non-English publishing industry, and to counteract the declining demand for original language publications. Our promotion and dissemination of non-English scholarly content, both in print and e-format, is based on two pillars. One of which relies on cataloging and bibliographic information services, and one, more recently, on e-content. We cooperate with all the major discovery services out there to ensure the dissemination and the discoverability of the metadata of our e-content. Making the content discoverable worldwide is truly crucial. As a matter of fact, the harder the information is to find, the less relevant it becomes. And for minor languages such as Italian or Portuguese, that is a risk that we, the publishers, and the libraries cannot afford. Another factor worth mentioning is the cost of the materials published in our countries. Compared to the Anglo-American publications, the average price of e-books and books published in the Mediterranean area is much, much lower. And when all the behind-the-scenes work I've just described is factored in, you realize that we operate on very tight margins. The licensing of the content. In our capacity as aggregators of multiple publishers' content, we must be extremely careful to try to find the common denominator in terms of licensing and usage permissions of our e-content. We have now around 90% of the publishers hosted on Torrosa sharing the same license agreement and the same usage permissions. And because we all know how frustrating can be for users to use a platform with multiple usage permissions, multiple licensing terms, etc. And the licensing has become an increasingly complex and time-consuming activity, not only for libraries, but also for vendors. And oftentimes the licensing paperwork is taken care of outside of the library. So it's the legal office of the university, the entity in charge. And this means that it may take several weeks, if not months, to get through all the approval steps of the license. And in the meantime, the access to the content cannot be activated. So at our end, we adopted a very simple and straightforward licensing model, the one license fits all model, with the goal of making the approval of the license as easy and as fast as possible. And licensing is, of course, also a complicated matter when it comes to onboarding new publishers. Publishers sometimes tend to look at ebook platforms like an existential threat to their business that might cannibalize the print sales. And libraries, on the other hand, fear that they may lose their role altogether if they don't give access to their patrons to the ebooks they need when they need them. So the only thing that is bigger than their mutual fear is the mutual opportunity for collaboration. And Casalini, working as an interface between libraries and publishers, always tries to allow publishers the freedom to price and license their books as they see fit for library consumption, but also guides and suggests what the best pricing and licensing strategy can be for all the stakeholders. As you can imagine, this is no easy task and requires a great deal of diplomacy and persuasion. Over the past several years, the digital revolution has changed the library approach to collection development, thus challenging the publishers' business models, still very tied to a print-based structure. The E is becoming the preferred format, regardless of the language of publications. And during the first months of the pandemic, when most of the libraries were closed, the demand for ebooks literally skyrocketed. But after a few months, as libraries started to reopen, the acquisition patterns got back to a pre-pandemic level. Honestly, we would have expected a much more radical shift to but this just didn't happen, with some notable exceptions though. Some libraries, especially in the US, have continued to buy many ebooks, some of them by just increasing their firm ordering or implementing PDA programs or buying custom or pre-selected collections. And in many cases, this is interesting, this new acquisition pattern was driven by a new faculty or a new selector. But not every library was created equal, and the ability to create tailor-made solutions to meet any and every library's needs will be a key factor to improve the adoption and the overall user experience of ebooks. We have many challenges ahead, but what we can do is to implement a whole new set of tailor-made usage policies for ebooks and experiment new pricing models, increasingly based on the actual usage permissions needed by the libraries. So, for example, temporary or single user access, short-term loan, etc. As we say in the abstract of this presentation, the future is not ours to see. But we think the foreign language ebooks will continue to play a very important, a crucial role in academic libraries, and the patrons' experience will be positively affected by all the innovations, both technological and contractual, being experimented and developed by our industry. Thank you very much. Okay, Sina.
Good morning, and thank you for having me here, and thank you for coming. It's so nice to see everybody in person. I feel I'm in a very good company today, and what Fernando and Andrea said really hit home. Our company, Eastview, is also not close to the size of the big players in our industry, but we feel our mission is a big one. With supplying materials in Chinese, Ukrainian, and Russian languages, sometimes our mission seems like mission impossible. We are a US-based company with the offices in China, Russia, Ukraine, Europe, and we have representatives in all countries of the former Soviet Union and Eastern Europe. Initially, we were dealing with books, periodicals, newspapers and journals, information from former Soviet Union countries, from East Asia and Middle East. But now we are expanding globally, especially with our product, such product lines as digital news per archive, with collaboration with CRL, and digital census archive. We also provide access to ebooks in Chinese, Arabic, Persian, and other foreign languages. But today, I would like to concentrate on our Slavic ebook collection, and especially collection in Russian language. This presentation would have been different if I have talked before February, before Russian invasion of Ukraine. And this is a major concern in many academic institutions in the North, in the West. Should we continue to collect materials in Russian under this current situation? We receive calls and emails from many customers. Is Eastview planning to supply materials from Russia? And the answer is yes, we will, unless it will be prohibited by sanctions. One of our beliefs at Eastview that it is very important for scholars, analysts, public leaders and political leaders to have access to information from Russia in order to try to prevent what's happening right now. It is a very tragic event. but it's a snapshot of our history, and it will be analyzed and studied by many generations to come. Few words about our ebook program. We started more than 10 years ago to put ebooks, Slavic books on our platform, and we created our own platform. Life and showed that it was a very right decision to create our own platform, and especially to have service in the United States, especially having in mind unstable situation in Russia right now. For our ebooks database, we usually follow selection criteria which we use for our print approval plans. And also the same criteria we use for the selection of publishers for our platform. We currently have about 15,000 Slavic books on our platform, and 1,500 ebooks are added annually. Our main goal right now to add as much as possible publishers from Ukraine. Can you imagine working right now with no electricity or internet, and they're still working? And that is why we feel that by the end of this year, we will have a very good representation of Ukrainian publishers on our platform. Also, everybody knows why significance of electronic resources has increased during the COVID, with so many libraries working remotely. But maybe fewer understand the situation with the Ukrainian conflict and Russian sanctions actually started to influence the Russian print book supply. For example, there is no direct flights from Moscow right now. That is why shipping costs are doubled and continue to grow. With sanctions, Russia experienced shortage of paper and print ink, and that is why prices increased for print books for 20–25% since the beginning of the year. It doesn't influence ebook prices so much, and in general, Slavic ebooks are cheaper or at least at the same level as print books. I don't know if everybody here knows that American government introduced from August 35% tariffs on import of Russian and Belarusian books. So everybody who import Russian books should pay 25% more because of the tariffs. And also, Russian ebooks or Slavic ebooks can be delivered to libraries much quicker right now with these routes that we have now for shipping. We at Eastview experience of developing of our ebooks program actually shares other presenters' stories. Even in e-preferred institutions, ebooks in foreign languages are not still a preferred format. And situation in Ukraine and COVID influenced this situation, but not to the extent it should be to our view. But there is always happy stories, right? So that is why I want to share with you an interesting experience of East Coast institutions during the pandemic. So 7 institutions at East Coast came up with sort of a consortium deal for purchasing of Russian ebooks on approval plan basis. 4 institutions, Columbia, Cornell, New York Public Library, and Yale, started this program, and NYU, Princeton, and Harvard joined 1 year later. They agreed about the following. First of all, they agreed about the list of publishers they want to cover. There are about 40 of them. They also agreed about subject parameters and exclusions. For example, they don't want Judaica, they don't want fiction, they don't want heavily illustrated art books. And also, they agreed about the budget. Following these criteria, We at Eastview provided a monthly selection of Russian ebooks and delivered them at the same time to all 7 institutions. As with many approval plans, the goal was to fulfill the budget by providing more or less balanced monthly portions of ebooks during the fiscal year. Full mark records were individually provided to each institution following their requirements in local fields. Everybody enjoying discount, and also full mark records were pretty inexpensive because these institutions shared the cost of their creation. To everybody's surprise, usage statistics were quite high, and it helped to overcome hesitation that patrons in Slavic studies still prefer print books. We really hope to develop this experiment and use the same services in other academic institutions in North America. It could be different budgets, it could be different list of publishers or subjects, but definitely the consortia approach definitely prove it's right for this existence. What did we learn during this pilot project? First of all, it is very hard to overestimate the importance of the person in the library who understands the role of ebooks in foreign languages and play the advocate or cheerleader role among other institutions. In our case, it was Rob Davis, a Slavic librarian from Columbia University. From other side, we as a vendor understood the importance of preservation. So all these ebooks were preserved with clocks. Discoverability is another very significant issue. In this situation, when many academic institutions experience shortage of acquisitions, catalogers with foreign language expertise, mark records and metadata provided by vendor together with the content is a very important thing. We're also working with all link resolvers to help libraries to have access to our books faster and easier. We also realized that we have to bring in one room, in our case, of course, it was a Zoom room, all departments in the institutions. Our regular meetings with subject librarians, catalogers, acquisitions, technical services help to overcome a lot of roadblocks and help to develop this project. And last and not least, we realize that for vendor, it's not enough nowadays to be just an excellent content provider. We have to follow libraries' requirements in technical services, digital innovations, and also have a modern infrastructure in order to provide all services the library need. So we're all here believers in ebooks, and we do believe that situation with ebooks in foreign languages will improve, and it will become a preferred format for the selection and supplying libraries. Thank you.
Thank you all. I think we have a little time for questions, but what I think is no accident is this idea of the cheerleader and the fact that 2 of the 3 presentations here mentioned specific librarians by name as people who were leaders, who had a vision that they were able to share with other libraries and with you all. And I think that's a really important point. But over to questions from you.
Hi, my name is Karina. I'm actually with Eastview. And I have a question, and it's for Bill. some of the presenters did talk about sort of faculty adoption or lack thereof, and some of the differences in pre-pandemic versus during pandemic, versus post-pandemic. And I'm just wondering what your experience has been like at NYU with looking at all of your foreign language materials on ebooks. Have you found faculty adoption just overall with foreign language ebooks has picked up? Has it slowed down since the pandemic? And what are you doing to sort of try to increase adoption of them, and how can vendors help? You can feel free to answer one or more of those questions, I guess, depending on
Right.
what you're
And I'll say too, I mean, I can answer from my perspective, but we're also full in here of other librarians who are dealing with the same issue. So if some of you have comments as well, or if I say something that you think should be corrected, let us know. But I think for, NYU has been a heavy ebook collector for at least the last decade, partially driven by our global campuses. And so it's been an incredibly important part of our collection development for a long time. And I think including in foreign language acquisitions, although things have moved much more slowly. I think the keys for us at first are really simple things, and that is the solving discovery problems, solving issues with incorporating things into more standard processes. I also think that it's been important to us to think about not only the e-access, but a print component in collaboration with other libraries, so that you can answer some of those people who have concerns about print availability by saying there is a print copy available somewhere, and at the same time, if you need this tonight, or if you need this during the pandemic, or if you need to do sort of the kinds of searching and broader looking that you can do across ebooks much more readily, we have that in place as well. So that's my narrow perspective. But again, I think we have other folks here too.
Let me get you that.
Here comes the mic.
So the question is, I was wondering for the presenters, you are talking about the discoverability of the ebooks in different type of foreign material language. So I was wondering, the MAC records you're talking about, is the free service coming with the ebooks, or it's an additional service that library has to kind of purchase? Because in the States, the ebooks usually come with the MAC records for the libraries. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So, answering your question in my behalf, for the open access project, we send the library champions the MAC record directly to the ebooks, but then the ebooks are also available in OCLC and JSTOR, and the libraries can download. The problem when they want in JSTOR and OCLC that have not the both link for the publisher too. In case of JSTOR have an issue because JSTOR, the monographs are divided in chapters, and when we send both links, the user can see the chapters, but he can also download the complete book in a PDF format. And then, in case of commercial ebooks, we are selling through ProQuest, or uploading them, and probably we are going to do an agreement with Casalini and put the books in their platform and provide the MAC records.
Yeah, we at Casalini, of course, we provide free basic MAC records with all the ebooks we sell through our platform, but we also supply all the metadata of the single ebooks and of the collections that are available on our platform to all the major discovery services out there. So on a regular basis, we now supply these records to the discovery services on a bi-weekly basis.
I would like to bring up the following, that when we are talking about English language materials, right, the Wiley or Bank & Taylor, they are selling hundreds hundreds copies of the same titles. All of us here, if we are lucky, if we can sell 5 copies or 6 copies of the same books. So we don't have the capacity always to provide free MARC records. We do provide free brief MARC records, of course, with all our approval plans and actually even firm orders. But when we are talking in full MARC records, sometimes we need some financial support in order to do this, because we just can't cover it ourselves because of the limited number of copies of the books we sell. I'm not sure if you have the same problem.
Hi, I'm Ryan Johnson from Georgetown University, and Georgetown purchases a great deal of non-English material, including significant from all 3 of these vendors. But a broader question is, I mean, mostly it's been in print. As we move to those questions you've addressed there, but there's lots of other languages out there, and it becomes more complex with each new language. We buy a lot in Arabic and Chinese and Japanese, Korean and Thai and Hindi and all kinds of languages, and how we expand that ebook beyond kind of, particularly the Romance languages, and into all the languages of the world is going to be a challenge, but I hope we can work together to address. It's more of a comment than a question, but I think it's a significant one because there's lots of places where the transition is lagging far behind, and that's a significant issue to address.
And I think we are at time. We maybe could do one more question if there's anything important. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I would like to answer something that he asked. One thing that is important and that we have in common is that we are low-scale material. The only way to get the material in electronic is to continue to do the same work that we do in print. Because there are a lot of small publishers that are not going to upload the book in broker and then it goes in ProQuest. And then the libraries, they don't select the books that they are there. The publishers upload some books in that condition, and then the new books, they don't apply anymore because the libraries, they don't know that the books are there and no one buy the books, and then you don't have the new books. It's like the chicken on the egg. One thing that we need to tackle as a consortia environment partnership between libraries and vendors is how we solve the issue of the scale and get the same type of material that we're getting in print or in electronic. But if the library continue doing pick and choose, and I don't do value matter collection in electronics, you will not have the whole set of collection that you have currently in print.
Thanks to all my colleagues and thanks to all of you